Hey everybody, I'm Benj. This is What Could Be Bad. Thank you for joining us again. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. Very excited to be here because I finally get to interview Demetri Manabat. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me. We have been planning this for quite some time now.
I feel like we've been trying to plan it and now we finally planned it. I just was like, I'm getting in the car, we're doing this. So I'm glad the schedule's allowed. You're someone I have a lot of respect for.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like the internet delivers a lot of things in our lives, right? Like whether it's Amazon stuff or actual people. And I will say when I saw your poem, the feeling that it gave me, when you're saying you won't let your children play with dolls, that moved me so deeply at a time where I think the turmoil in my life was really like, this world is so screwed up. There's so much wrong out there. And like, where are the beautiful things? Where are the people who are gonna like lead us forward in a way that I could be proud of, that I'll be psyched about for my kids? And when I heard that, it was a reminder. It was the reminder I needed. It was exactly the reminder I needed to like chill out, because there are younger people out there whose hearts are in the right place. And when I found that, you know, of all the things that were going on in my life, it settled me. And I usually don't reach out to people over the internet like that. And I just hit you up, and I think I just wrote like respect or something like that. And it's just been really meaningful to like meet someone who's like down to earth and artistic and, you know, filled with the right morals to usher in like the next generation in whatever regard that's going to be.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I remember that clearly. Crazy thing is at that time, just like, you know, message inbox was flooded. So it was all new. And I was like, I am so overwhelmed by this. And I was only just like picking out like here and there, just like messages to respond to, just because it was impossible to get to all of them, which I still make an attempt to this day. Like there's messages from like 2 years ago. I'm like, hey, sorry for the late reply, but you know, I appreciate all the support.
Yeah, no, it's awesome that you still will get back to people.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think it was just one of those things that was meant to be, where I was just like in a single response just culminated into this, which is, I'm happy I responded.
Yeah. Good, me too, man. You know, and you invited me to like poetry slams out here, and I went to, you performed in San Diego near where I live, and we got to hang out that night, and I got to see you perform as well. You introduced me to some other poets that I didn't know, which was great. That was a powerful evening in itself. But what is it like being a poet? You know, like the art scene I know is, I think, very different than that, you know?
Being a poet, which is something it took a long time for me to even label myself as a poet. I think when people hear the word poet, they think of like the Shakespeares, the Langston Hughes, like just people that are just like outside the scope of reality.
Yeah.
As far as just thought process goes. But I think for me, being a poet is more so just trying to be a better person. My coach, Dr. Javon Johnson, who I attribute a lot of my growth to and success to, likes to say that, I'm gonna butcher this, so if he's watching this, I'm so sorry. It's one or the other, forget, but creativity is imagination in practice, our willingness to imagine a world that we want so much to exist. So I think being a poet is simply my way of not only making sense of the world, but pushing for a better world to exist. And I think as people, we try to do that in any capacity we can. And this is just the way that I found works best for me, that I found that I can have at least a little bit of an impact with. It's heavy at times, you know, a lot of the things that we write about deal with some heavy topics. But when I first started writing, it was my way of sort of processing a lot of things that I had a very difficult time processing in the past. So as much as it impacts the world and people that listen, it definitely is cathartic to me as well.
When did it start? Like you're saying, like when you started, like was that, how young were you?
It was so English and like writing was something I've always enjoyed, but I come from Filipino and Mexican parents, so that was never like a career path that was feasible. It was like, all right, I'm good at it. All right, now, you know, time to be a doctor, you know?
Our parents want what they want.
Yeah. I think specifically poetry though, I think it was like the end of 2022.
Okay.
So fairly, 3-4 years coming on now, which I think in my last semester in college before I withdrew, I just randomly took like a creative writing class. I was like, let me just try this out, see if there's anything here. and I had set out to write like a novel. I was super ambitious. I was like, I'm gonna do this, you know?
That's awesome.
And quickly learned how tedious and long writing a novel takes.
Yeah.
I was convinced I was gonna get it done in like 2-3 months. I was like, I can do this. No one could tell me otherwise. Through the recommendation of some people in my life, they're like, you should try writing something that is shorter, that you can finish, right? Like have your name on, like, you know, show the world, like, hey, look, I did something, you know? Because writing a book, you don't get to do that for a very long time. So I found like a flyer for like a poetry slam. And for my 21st birthday, instead of like going to a club or out, I went to a poetry slam with one of my friends. And very quickly saw that poetry was not as lame as I previously thought it was. You know? I love introducing people to this scene because it's always that same reaction where it's like, I didn't know it could sound like this. Everyone has that preconceived notion of like what poetry might sound like. And yes, it does exist like how you might think in some capacities, but there's also a very different side of poetry that doesn't get exposed too often. So I went to that poetry slam and I went to maybe like 1 or 2 more events, and it was just history from there. And I was watching people on stage and I was like, I think I could do this. Like I could see myself, you know, on there, like just writing, you know, some powerful pieces.
Did you go up on stage that first time, or was it more just observation?
No, I just watched. I was just watching.
How did that inform like your process from that point on? Did you start writing in order to get on a stage, or was it writing to, you know, strictly be on a piece of paper?
So in the past, it was just writing strictly just to be on a piece of paper. After going to that event, I had started writing a piece. I was like, I'm gonna share this on stage.
Awesome.
Now, that piece will never see the light of day. There was one recording of it. I think that one of my friends has. It doesn't exist online, and I hope it never does.
But we start somewhere. We go somewhere else.
Listen, I have like my second and third performances online, but like that first one is interesting. But I mean, with that, like, I think that first performance gave me everything that I needed in order to keep going and like, actually see this as something I wanted to continue doing. It took like 2 events of watching before I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Was it the feeling you got seeing the audience interact with what the person was saying? Was it like the fact that you could get your message out? Like, what drew you the most?
What drew me the most was how much it related to other people. I found it very funny early on that the more specific I was talking about myself, the more of an impact it would have on certain people, where it's like, I would talk about certain situations with like family members passing, and the amount of people that would come up and say like, you know, that same exact thing happened to me, and like I really needed to hear that. And I found that oftentimes people go to these events in search of words that they don't have themselves. I think as writers, we often forget like we have this ability to put our emotion into word on paper, which is not something that everyone can do. So oftentimes we might say a line that like someone hangs on to it for a very long time that like gives them sort of a sense of grounding or helps them make sense of a lot of these things. So I think seeing that sort of interaction of like realizing I'm not the only one, it made be, ironically being on stage by myself made me feel much less alone. Like seeing like people sort of hang on to some of those words that I spoke.
Did you feel alone because of the options that were in your community that would draw you, that weren't drawing you, or whatever, you know, that were out there as things to do as a 21-year-old person? Like, was it that you weren't really attracted to that stuff? You know what I'm saying? And it was just like you were trying to find a spot.
I've never been like much of like a club goer. My fiance loves it. She loves going out, and I'm like, hey, I will drop you off and pick you up. I'm cool. I'm not going. That's never been my scene. And I think around that time, you and I have talked, like, was the time that my dad had passed. And I think I've spoken on this before. Like, when that happens, it literally feels like the world just stops, and like no one else can relate to like what you have going on. And I think that played the biggest role in like that feeling of loneliness, where it's like I have this like major event happening in my life and the world just keeps going, and it's like I wanted everyone to stop with me. And you know, the cathartic aspect of that was being on stage. Like, it felt like the world stopped for like 3 minutes just to like listen to what I had to say and just like live in this with me for a second, which like I said, helped kind of mend the loneliness a little bit. You and your father were tight. Absolutely. The
story of you losing him like is heart-wrenching. And I don't want to not do it justice, but can you share how that went? You know, because to me, that's a big part of like besides the poem I already referenced, that reaches me, and we'll get into that. But I'm curious if you can share with the audience what happened with your father.
Yeah, so it was the end of 2020 when the whole world was just shut down, right? It was unprecedented times. Just to give some context, at this point, I had made the decision I did not want to be in school anymore, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to tell my parents, right, that I was dropping out. I had already dropped out.
Okay.
I withdrew from all my classes,
Right.
and I had pretended that I was still in school for like months after that. And I was like, I'm just kicking a can down the road, just trying to figure out how I'm going to tell them.
As long as I could do this.
I want to live in peace as long as possible because I knew exactly how it was going to end. So in my head, I'm like, okay, how can I mitigate the damage as best as possible? Like when do I tell them that would make them the least angry? So on Christmas Eve, I had the bright idea, right? I was like, this is the time to do it, right?
Here's your
no one gets mad on Christmas.
And that's a great point. Is like you're diffusing it a little bit.
In hindsight, I'm like, that's kind of messed up. But like, really, it's like I was just kind of deafening the blow a little bit. So I wrote them a letter, right? It was beautiful, well written, like one of my best pieces I've ever written, right? Pretty much explaining like everything that was going on, like why I didn't want to be in school, just my plan. I think I was trying to pursue real estate or something like that. I was like, guys, I have this figured out. Don't worry.
I had your plan.
I had nothing figured out.
Yeah. That's being young.
Yeah. And so at that time, the routine was I spend Christmas Eve with my then girlfriend, now fiance's family. Spend the night there, and then we come over to my house for Christmas morning. And so I gave them 2 letters, one for my dad and one for my mom. I left them on their bed and then left the house. And I texted them, I was like, hey, left a present on the bed for you guys. Love you, I'll see you tomorrow. Turned off my phone. I was like, all right, I'm gonna enjoy my last night on Earth. This is gonna be beautiful. Right?
The implosion's coming.
No. And it was a wonderful night. It was beautiful. We played games, opened presents. It was amazing. And
that's cool.
So we went to bed, we woke up. And like it's just that sigh of like, all right, let's turn on this phone and see what happens. You know, it has like that like brief moment of silence before messages start. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe they read it and understood it and like they're just gonna wait. And then before I knew, it was like 700 messages from my mom, just missed calls. I was like, oh, this is not good. I had one message from my dad that said, hey, thanks for the letter. I really enjoyed it. We'll talk when we get home. I'm like, oh, beautiful. Love that.
Yeah.
My mom, completely different story.
Oh no.
And so we walked in the house and the tension was just like so thick. It was like, oh, because me not being there meant my other 3 brothers kind of caught collateral from that.
Right, like the emotional state that they're in.
They're like, we hope you know you ruined the night. Like she was mad at us and I didn't even do anything.
Proper brother action right there.
And so we're sitting there and we're opening presents, right? And I'm just like, feeling so guilty because I'm opening these presents from my parents and I just feel death stare I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
Like, Yeah.
After presents, they pulled me like, we talked for, I want to say like an hour of just like back and forth.
Yeah.
And it pretty ultimately ended with my mom saying like, it's either you go back in school or you have to leave the house. And that was where we were at that point. And me being an angsty, 18, 19-year-old, I was like, all right, when do you want me out by? And I was like, I had no plan. I was like, we're going to figure this out,
Yeah.
And so I'm like in the middle of packing my bags and my dad was a real softie. He's like, just take one class, like just enroll in one class and you can stay here. I'm like,
bear down a little bit.
At that point, I made up my mind. I was like, no, I'm not going back. And so I was packing my bags and while packing, I had got a phone call from my fiance. It was like, hey, my family like tested positive for COVID. You should probably get tested. And that was like at the peak of COVID. Like everyone had like rapid testers on hand. Totally. And I was like, all right, let me test myself. This was a couple days after. And so I'm testing myself and tested positive. And I was in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I bought 2 weeks of quarantine. I can't leave, I'm like,
I don't have to deal with the emotional state.
Right? This is strategy at this point. I'm like, I found a place, I'm good.
Yeah.
I have time to plan. My mom's pissed. She was like, don't come out. Like, just stay in your room. Like, whatever. And so she's telling everyone, like, stay away from him. Like, we don't want it to spread. My dad obviously didn't listen. He, like, they're like, those are my sons, like whatever. And so
Yeah.
I remember him coming into the room like after my mom had slept every night just to talk and like just hang out. And I'm like, hey, you shouldn't be in there, like, you know. He's like, you think she runs the house? I'm like, yes, absolutely, she does.
Yeah, moms usually do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, eventually, as we can assume, like it spread to everyone in the house, and so at that point, we were like,
Yeah.
all right, there's no point in like us staying in our rooms, like everyone has it.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks, no one was going to work, no one had school or anything, so we were all just like hanging out, which honestly was an amazing 2 weeks. Like we played Monopoly almost every night, and it was just ordering in, and thank goodness to all the DoorDash and Uber drivers at that, and all the restaurants that stayed open.
Yeah.
And over time, like when I had first gotten sick, I had gotten really sick, I think for 2 or 3 days, and I finally started recovering. And at that time, my dad just kind of slowly started getting a bit sicker. He would still come out and hang out, but it just kind of got harder. And then eventually, he had to he couldn't even get out of bed at that point. And we had the little pulse ox reader, and so once that hit like below, I think like 92, my mom made the decision like, all right, you have to go to the hospital. Like, it's not getting any better. And at that point, my youngest brother had also been like getting really bad. Well, he was in the ICU for quite some time from COVID, and they were like, yeah, he's gonna deal with lung problems for the rest of his life, and which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, my dad being in the hospital as well, and what started off like he was still able to call and FaceTime, and they had him in like one of the tents, I think, that they had set up outside the hospital.
Okay.
And then eventually like calls turned into texts, and then texts turned into like just kind of liking messages and stuff, all knowing that it was just getting very hard for him to breathe and speak. And then I remember my mom kind of told us that he had consented to being intubated because it just got like so hard at that point. And then, you know, eventually we had that tough conversation of just like things aren't getting better, and we kind of know where this is going to end.
Yeah.
And having like had experience like in sort of like science and biology, and there was a point where he got a lot better very quickly, and like in the back of my head I knew that usually meant like the worst is to come, which is something that happens sometimes in the ICU where patients get a lot better before, you know, things end. And then I think after a month in the hospital, we went to go see him the last time, the night or the afternoon before he passed. And that I think was the hardest moment, because at that time, like you weren't even allowed in the room. Like it was, you were sitting outside, there was a glass, and just kind of seeing him like that was just very difficult. And he ended up passing. And at that point, my mom was like, okay, I don't care if you're in school or not, can everyone just stay for a little bit? Because like, you know, it was a monumental loss in our family.
Yeah, I mean, he's the patriarch of the family. I mean, I sense how like loving your family is to one another. What was the response like when your mom said that for you, kind of being in that emotional state of losing your father, knowing you wanted to go out on your own and not follow the path of being you know, getting an education in college and all that, that you can make your way in other ways.
I was like, oh, thank goodness.
You didn't want it, yeah. You
I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, yes.
yeah, okay. So it was a relief in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't
and
like okay.
The way that my brothers and I cope, and I have such a much easier time talking about it today, I think simply from performing on stage so much. Like,
that's
I've
part of
talked
what I
about it
want
a
to
lot.
talk about.
The main coping mechanism throughout my brothers and I is just humor. Like I think we had all returned to work within the next like couple days after his funeral, and like we just kind of like just resumed. And my mom, like growing up, she was always like the disciplinary, like just hard shell, just like all saw as like, you know, the one to be scared of.
Yeah.
And I think him passing just showed us like a completely different side of her in these past years.
Yeah.
A much more like softer and sensitive side. Sometimes to the point where like my brothers who still live there will do something, I'm like, you know, you would have never done this 7 years ago. I'm like, you have changed.
Yeah. Like, I mean, how do you think for her losing a partner, you know, as well as like someone who's helping support her boys, you know, like you don't have sisters, right?
No, just brothers, yeah.
So I mean, like for her, how did she process that, you know?
I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a partner.
Yeah.
You know, I've never, and hopefully won't ever go through that. I'm praying that I go first between I don't know how.
I have the same
I
thoughts. I don't want to be around.
Manage,
if she
and
goes.
I have those same questions for her as well. Where I'm just like, I don't know how she managed to make it through, even continues to make it through. Like she was, a funny story, leading up to the funeral, we like all wrote speeches and stuff, and she's like, look, my biggest pet peeve, and she's like, this may sound harsh, is when people just start crying up there on the podium. She was like, I can't even hear what you're saying. She was like, I'm just kind of sitting here watching you cry, you know? And I get it, it's emotional, right? But this is just my mom's thought process.
I love that, yeah. I understand.
For a week and a half, I think, we would set up this makeshift podium in the family room and we would all have to read speeches. And we're all just like laughing like at the idea, and then we start reading and we all just like disappear into just tears each time. But like as the week and a half progresses, like we were able to get through it, and like even like, you know, throwing some jokes here and there, to where when the funeral came, like that was the one thing that people said was like, you represented your dad so well. Like, this is terrible, but my brothers and I had made a bet before the funeral, like, hey, whoever cries has to pay the other brothers like $20. We're like, just put some incentive in there.
I think your dad was smiling at that one. Like he knew you guys were making the best of it.
Yeah. But I think that was my mom's whole intention, was like making sure that we continue to represent him in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I imagine what helps her get through is my brothers and I all represent a different part of my dad. My older brother, he has a girlfriend now, and she unfortunately didn't get to meet him. And she always kind of talks about just wishing she would have met him. And my fiance was the one that said, I mean, you kind of have already. Like, just imagine all of them combined. Like, that's who he was. Like, my older brother is very much the protector and like sort of like stoic, you know. And I'm very much like, I'm the one who gets the birthday cards and the flowers, and just very much on the romantic side, loving side. My younger brother is just hilarious, just is always the life of the party. And my youngest brother is still, you know, very much the very hardworking, wants to go on to do all these great things, and just big dreamer, and which I know he will. Like, he has to be the one to go back to college. Otherwise, my mom will be like 0 for 4 with college students. So she is all eggs in the basket on him.
Yeah, I feel like parents don't always get what they want for their kids, but the kids still find ways to honor the parents, knowing that, you know, it's a life that they're meant to live, like from what they've learned and gleaned from the parental unit. It's like you're not gonna, no kid's gonna do exactly what mom and dad says, or they're not like really a kid. You know, like our job is to be crazy and anti-authority. I feel like
absolutely.
I think it's fascinating that like each of you has a chunk of the personality, you know, in that way. That's really interesting. And from what I know of you, like I would have loved to know your father. My wife, her dad passed 20 years ago, and I never knew him. And the same thing that what you said, she's said stuff like that to me, like you do know him in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to realize, that those people shine through us, you know, that we love, that aren't with us anymore. And I've seen that come out of you directly. And I'm wondering how you manage that on stage. You know, like I would break down, like like I'm a sensitive guy, like things affect me and I emotionally react. Like that's just me. And like, I know you're sensitive too. Is it controlling it? Is it, I talked about this in another episode about like compartmentalizing and like put your emotion in a box over here and say what you need to say over here. Like, how do you deal with that?
So it's a conversation we have with my team as well. I'm part of a team called Spotlight Poetry. One of the things we talk about is the importance of not compartmentalizing on stage.
Interesting.
An audience can very much tell when you're not in the poem, or when you're not, you know, fully like resonating with it.
Yeah.
And I've done that before, like in an effort to like hold myself together, I just kind of recite it out of muscle memory, and it's very noticeable, right? Part of performing on stage is like, you want to think about it as you're literally grabbing the audience members by the hand and just saying like, here, let's take a walk somewhere. I want to show you all these things, right?
Yep.
And so with something that I'm still working very hard to learn how to do is like let go on stage.
Okay.
It's my biggest critique that I get all the time from our coaches. You got to just like let the poem do what it does.
Yeah.
Like, you have to just feel it. Part of that obviously is like probably like avoidance tendencies to like a lot of these emotions, like just suppressing them, which, you know, it's happened a couple times where the poem kind of takes over and you just like feel all these emotions.
Yeah.
And that gives something very real to the people watching, as much as it does for yourself. And I think it's one of the heavier parts about being a poet and striving to be a great poet, right? Because there's good poets, there's great poets, there's phenomenal poets, and then there's the Hall of Fame poets, and then like any sport or craft, there's that Hall of Fame room that exists inside the Hall of Fame where you find, you know, the Michael Jordan, the Michael Phelps, the Serena Williams, the Gabby Simone, but like all of the greats of the greats, you know? And what separates those poets in that room from the others is the ability to sort of like tap into that poem and like being able to feel it for what it is and, you know, give it justice on stage. So I think it's less about learning to control it on stage and more about finding ways to just let it flow through you on stage. I think it allows for not only a better performance, but, you know, it's for me, it's cathartic, like being able to still like feel that stuff. You know, I think the day that comes where I'm like, I can't feel any of this, I'm like, all right, something might be wrong right now.
Well, to me, when I've seen you perform, and I mean, not only in person, but on the internet, like you are feeling it. I think maybe your coach wants you to be deeper and deeper into it, which will maybe enact more of a emotional response from the audience. But like, I see that in how you deliver. How do you balance that with like memorizing something and like making sure, because like I've done some talks where like I have to memorize specifically like what I want to say and how I want to say it. Do you struggle with that ever?
Memorize, so it's just hours and hours of just like practice. Like we call it getting the poem into the body, where it's like, you know it so well that like, you know, any distraction could happen and you just, it doesn't phase you.
Yeah.
To where like, even if I were to like, I've dropped lines in the middle of a poem or like completely forgotten parts, and it's being able to find your way back, like knowing it that well. It just comes with just hours of preparation, which memorization has been something that I've always like been good at since high school, where it's like, I think that whole biomedical side of it was like just having to memorize terms and definitions and stuff, like really played a big role in me. Like I've memorized poems like, you know, 15 minutes before I have to perform them. It's like, all right, we're good. But it's like also being comfortable enough to where like, if you do forget it, you know how to get back on track, or you can just kind of like figure out how to get to the end, knowing it to the point where you don't even have to question it anymore.
Yeah, I relate to that in the way that like in music, like I get songs down and like the muscle memory kicks in, where some audience member is doing something crazy and I'm still playing what I'm supposed to be playing, and I forget that I'm playing it. I'm like thinking about, why is that person doing that thing? You know, and you're still there in it, you know, and that's like, you're like getting it into the body.
I've performed shows where like the power goes out like halfway through a poem.
Oh, you told me
oh my
about
goodness.
that one.
That's happened I think two or three times now, and it's spooky. Like it was always in the same spot in the poem where I like talk about my dad.
Yeah.
And it was just, the first time I was like, oh, that's funny. Second and third time I'm like, oh wow, this is great timing, you know?
yeah, like he's kind of messing with you a little bit. That like humorous side of him is coming into play.
Yeah, but like even like, you know, dogs barking, just like, you know, especially in Las Vegas, like just having to deal with like the bar chatter and just everything. I think it's all like what we call like distraction workshops, where it's like you practice in spaces where like there are intentional distractions to where like nothing phases you.
That's cool. And that's part of what like the team like learns through. Is it like a baseball team where you like, you know, like you have to pay to be on the team and you're in the league and you can go to competitions, or is it more just people that get together socially as like a community type thing? Like we're all interested in poetry, let's meet up at this place to talk and have like an informal workshop, or is it like very serious and goal oriented?
It is a little bit of both. We have our moments of seriousness and we have our moments of, wow, why do people hire us? You know?
Sure. Yeah.
I think this is my third year being on the team. Our coach, Dr. Johnson, he became the coach our second year. And I think that year was the year where it's like everything became much more serious and structured as far as like our goals and like what the season is going to look like.
Yeah.
We held auditions, and coming into it, and this is all coming from our founder, Elle Hope, who pretty much built Spotlight Poetry on her back.
Is she based here?
Yeah, we're out here in Vegas.
Okay. I wasn't sure if Spotlight was like in other places too, but it's specific to here.
Yeah, specifically in Las Vegas. Eventually hoping to expand, but you know.
You will.
Yeah, everyone out here based in Vegas. It was very much the sentiment of Dr. Johnson will coach as long as he coach, like he's permitted to coach his way, and like he gets the say and everything. For those who don't know, Dr. Javon Johnson, in my opinion, right, whether you like agree with it or not, is the greatest to do it. Like spoken word, slam, like the whole nine, right? He's my number one poet.
That's incredible.
Am I allowed to cuss on here?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
I love when people ask, because I get to say fuck yeah.
I've been working so hard to like.
No. Say whatever you want, man.
I give him a lot of shit. Like we have this banter all the time between each other, but like in all honesty, like he is the person I like admire in the poetry world the most, both as a coach and as just someone in the same craft.
That's fantastic that you get to work with him, learn from him,
yeah.
and also see him work with other people and absorb that.
Absolutely. It's all, I'm just like a sponge in practice, trying to like take in as much as possible. But yeah, so we held auditions and he got final say and everything. He picked the 5 and we were all like certain, we're like, let's just keep this team. Like we want to keep this team for like the next however many years just to see like what we can build as a team. And I think that's kind of where sort of team competitive poetry is going into now, because a lot of times what teams will do is every year they'll hold re-auditions or like re-picked a new 5, and it's like, it's cool and all, but I think what we're headed to now is like seeing teams that are together for like 3, 4, 5 years to see like to what levels that we can ascend to together.
How does it work in a competition when you're with a team, or like, you know, in racing, a team member will like draft a guy so at the last minute he can get the gold or whatever, get ahead of someone else? Like, do you work like that where you like help someone get to a spot? How does that go?
So poetry slam, like competitive poetry, it's very much has strategy in its own. In a team setting, like, you know, there's bouts, and each bout there's 4 rounds. Each person can only go up once, or each quote unquote author, right? So we have group pieces and individual pieces. I have a wonderful teammate, Penehoro Williams, right? Let's say he goes up and does an individual piece. He can no longer go up and claim authorship of a poem for the rest of the bout. But if, let's say, Pene and I have a group piece together, Pene can go up and then we can go up and do our group piece as long as I take authorship of it, right? And so there's strategy in that of like who we're gonna send up, who's taking authorship of which poem, because we all work collectively on all the poems. So it's like, we can take authorship of whichever poem we need to. And we see that's a big strategy used in slam as well. There's strategy in, you know, looking at what other teams have thrown up before and seeing like how those score. Like, are political poems working this round? Are they just looking for energy? Are they looking for narrative, like emotion? What are they looking for?
And that's reading the judges
reading
as much
the judges,
as
reading
the
the room.
audience.
Yeah.
Because you want the reaction of the room to influence the judges.
Yeah. Because also like what we've seen as well is a different strategy is like, is there anything that the room is like yearning for right now? Like, do they want something? You know? And that's something that, again, we're all learning as well through our coach. Something that I've seen, like if it's really heavy, like do they want something funny right now? Do we need to like, you know, that can be a way to like, you know, give yourself an advantage. That can also be a way to throw off the next team where it's like just completely reset the room. So there's so much strategy in that way. And that's kind of like in competition in the team dynamic, how it works, like seeing like, you know, what poems do we want to give up right now? Like we have our, you know, our S tier poems, A tier, B tiers, and, you know, we don't write B tier poems, but right.
I believe it, man.
But just poems that we want to see like in finals, and you know, seeing what we can expel at that time. And so there's a lot that goes. At the end of the day, it's all a game, right? You know, whoever wins or not isn't always, you know, the greatest poets that night. You know, we've seen that happen plenty of times. We've experienced that happen. It's all about who can play the game better. And it's learning how to play that game.
So now that you have a team that you participate with and do slams with them, is it fulfilling to still do things on your own without the team? Like when I saw you come to San Diego on your own to do that, like does that feel as good as being on the team? And if it doesn't, like how's it different?
Absolutely. I mean, like we just had this discussion like over brunch a couple weeks ago of just like, it was so sad because it was like a discussion of like, all right, this is the beginning of the end, like just kind of mapping out the next 3 or 4 years of like, we don't want to be on a team forever, you know, like as sad as that may sound, like the goal of this team is to build up our own individual careers to the point where we can all go out and like have, you know, flourishing careers.
Yeah, and everyone's on board for that. They all get it. It's like the same unified goal.
And it's kind of what we view slam to be, at the springboard to get to other places. I started doing things on my own, was fortunate enough to be with a team that not only helps me grow, but helps me learn like where I need to adjust, and like whether it be in the business side of poetry and the artistic side of poetry. It's a very nice home base to have, to where it's like I can literally have like, you know, contracts or deals or events that I have questions about that I can bring back to them, like, hey, what do we think about this? And it's like there's no envy, like it's all support. There's no envy in any of it. Like when something good happens to one of us, like we were just all like so proud, because we're just one step closer to our goal of just making sure that everyone is self-sustaining in our own individual careers.
I love that. I mean, and to have no envy is also like, something that it's really encouraging for other people to realize. Like, you can be an artist and you can support other people.
There's a healthy envy where it's like, I'll see one of my teammates write a poem. I'm like, oh, that's so good. I hate it. I'm like, that's so good.
I feel you. Yeah, I can understand that. Well, so yeah, where's that line between like ego and envy is another thing I think a lot of artists grapple with, of like what's really important to me versus like, oh, I like what they're doing, I should do more of that or something like that. When you're on a team, do you feel that you have the ability to really still be an individual?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you can define that as you go.
Yeah. I think in order to be a cohesive team, we all have to be comfortable within our own voice. We all have to understand that we all have different styles. We all have different ways of doing things. And the more comfortable we are in that, I think the more cohesive we become. We all have a playful ego where it's like, it's like a family. It's like siblings.
Yeah.
Like, even though like I give them a lot of shit because I'm the young, I think it's either myself or Tatiana or Orlando that are the youngest on the team. I'm like, hey, listen, you guys are our elders. I'm like, I give them so much shit about it. But it is really like being like siblings, just like that playful banter. But
sure.
When it comes down to business, like there's no room for ego.
Okay.
Like, we are all learning. Like, we're all still very much students of it. As much as I feel like I may know something, like they always have, advice or feedback, which is the discussion we had when we first started the team 2 years ago was, we're not in the sort of beating around the bush industry. Like, we are on this team because we're all really good writers. We don't want to waste, hours talking about how successful we are, right? It might sound blunt, but it's the way that we work. Like, feedback, we know that, you're a great writer. It's without, explanation that was a phenomenal piece.
Yeah.
It would be much more efficient for me to give you the feedback on it and to see it grow into something better. And I think it takes a level of comfortability and removal of ego in order to be able to do that. Because that's I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this as well. That's the biggest, one of the biggest kind of issues for artists, is being able to receive feedback or critiques on their thing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you should believe that everything you do is great. I think every artist should.
Totally.
Absolutely. With the understanding of like, there's certain people to where it's like, if they give you feedback, their intention. And we all know each other's intention on the team is to just see each other grow. And I think that makes it much more digestible.
Totally. Yeah. I think it sounds like your industry treats the voices with a little more, maybe, I don't know, like understanding and respect than maybe mine. And like some of those voices though have egos that are completely out of check as well. Like it can happen in all kinds of ways. But it's good to hear like your approach. You've gone through all these things and you're seeing your career develop. You're seeing real opportunities popping up where you're able to travel and go to other communities and share your work. How do you go forward towards a career in poetry? What are the sort of like things that you want to see happen for you that are on your list of you want to get there?
On my list to get there, I want a book.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's like main kind of thing number one. I want to experience the East Coast in depth as far as poetry, which I'll be headed out there in August.
Really? Oh, cool.
Outside of that, I want to get to a point to where, long term, I want to get to a point to where I only have to travel if I need to, which I think is the dream.
Yeah.
Whether we know it or not for most artists, I would love to get to a point where like I can sustain myself from Las Vegas and not have to be all over. Because like the part that we don't talk about with traveling, which I'm sure you're well aware of, is everything you leave behind in the process.
Yeah.
Even this past trip to New Mexico we took with the team, and this trip upcoming to Baltimore next week, it's like, it is very difficult to leave my fiancée behind, and that is like the part that I struggle with the most. And I know that it'll get just exponentially harder once kids come around.
It does.
And this is I think from the outside looking in, like seeing people travel and do this, professionally, it's like we see it, we're like, oh, that must be the lifestyle. Like it must be great. It has its perks, it does, but it can also be very lonely as well.
Oh yeah, I would say more so usually that it's lonely unless you're actually able to travel with people that you really like love and respect and want to be around, and hopefully those friendships like sustain.
Yeah, because I mean, like you're at most like at an event for a couple hours, and then outside of that, it's hours of traveling. You're in the hotel room. I think long term, yeah, I would love to get to that point. But as far as like a shorter term, the next level for a lot of poets is just performing in corporate or university, and just that's where, like, if you were to perform and travel a lot, that's where you're gonna find like an amount of sort of money that would sustain you as an artist. Because we can only do so much, like performing local gigs or like here and there.
Right, I get that.
So I think that is next step, and then slowly expanding to other avenues that poetry might be used in. I mean, we see this in script writing, screenwriting, filmmaking. Again, like no one wants to compete and do all this forever. Like this is all a springboard to get into other industries.
Sure.
And so I think just as far as step-by-step plan, that's kind of what it's looking like right now.
Pretty developed, thoughtful plan right there. I think you know how you want it to go, and you know the steps to get there. Like it's not going from A to Z. It's like ABC
and like that. All to say, like I think, and this is the fault of social media as well. It's like I still have a full-time job, right?
Yeah,
like it's
totally.
like that's most poets. Like poetry is not a very flourishing like community financially. Like there's people that do really well in it. There's people who can travel full-time and do it, but that's like a select few, right? And I think that's the part that social media kind of like distorts, is like I always like take in submissions from like students who want to like show their work, and like I always open up the invitation like, hey, I can like we can hop on a Zoom call and like we can go over your poetry, right? So I don't like yes, people charge for it, and like I've been called stupid for not charging for it, but like I remember being a student, and I remember like freaking out when like certain people would respond on social media. So I think that level of access, if it does inspire any sort of spark for them to start writing, I'm like, well, I'm not going to charge for that. Like, you are 17 years old. I'm not doing that, right?
Well, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, we need leaders who are like understanding that people don't have the loot yet, that inspiration is more important than like, you know, like a half hour of a wage or something like that.
Yeah, and so one of the young poets I was meeting with on Zoom, like she was so surprised to find out that I worked a job. She was like, you work at, I'm like, yes. Like I like everything you see on social media is like late nights or like weekends or like just between shifts or whatever. Like it is a very like hustle like sort of lifestyle, trying to like get to a point where I can just do art.
Yeah, totally. I was just going to say the hustle is real. I mean, if you're working all day and then you're fitting these things in after hours and you're memorizing and you're drawing out this emotion from the deepest parts of your soul, that's work. You know, that doesn't like just happen. You know, you gotta really want it and put your energy towards that. It sounds like having a coach, having a team, it's further support, like your family, like all these people are there to see you do well with it. How has it been as your career has gone and you're getting more of a response outside of your initial network, call it, or whatever? How is it feeling when you are getting hit up from people who want to, you know, have your opinion on their work that you've never met across the world or something like that?
It is still very like, I still see myself as the poet, like from the first performance of just having no idea what he's doing. Because I think with the introduction to Dr. Johnson, like we've seen how big this world is as far as poetry goes. And so I still view myself as a very small fish in a very large pond.
Sure.
So even when like people hit me up, I'm still like, you want me to like look at your work? This is insane.
Yeah.
It's so like honoring and just humbling to have that, you know, to be to the point where people like want my advice on things or want my opinion. Like it's something that I do not take lightly, because I know how hard as an artist it is to reach out to certain people to like get feedback. I know how hard as an artist it is to get feedback in general. You know, we're very sensitive about our work. You know?
Until it's actually like out there, it's still like not real, like it could shift and all that. So to get like feedback, it can take a lot.
I still am very just like honored every time it happens. Like people just ask for any sort of advice.
I'm glad.
There's a poet named Alex, very big on like TikTok and Instagram, just social media world. He's killing it. Had the privilege of meeting him in person at an LA show that we both did. And even like, we were just equally stoked to see each other, because I'm like, you want like my feet, like I
mutual respect.
And you know, we've talked here and there after the fact, and it's like just being in community is a very cool thing, and then knowing that there's like a little bit of respect thrown my way as
Sure.
well is very nice to hear as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've earned that. You know, you're
A little bit, just a little bit.
just a little bit. Your poetry comes from the heart, and what another thing that I love is every one of your poems surprises me, and like I think it's your style is like paving a road, and then all of a sudden you're like, nope, we're going this way. You know, and it's really powerful to hear the way you use words to really change the understanding of what you're talking about. So I encourage everybody to check out your work because it's beautiful to me.
Thank you.
We're talking about so many different things. I don't want to leave out that, like, you know, your family is extremely tight with one another. And I know that, you know, the loss of your father was a big part of your life. And I know you're now engaged and looking at getting married soon. Obviously, when you get engaged, that's what you do. And I'm excited for you. And I just wonder how you internalize becoming a husband and potentially a father, you know, knowing that you've lost your father, that he's not going to be there at the wedding. Like for my wife, that was a hard thing that we went through together. How do you process that? How do you internalize walking into the next phase of your life as a man, you know, and being able to, you know, step into more shoes that your father wore?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a work in progress. Like there's events today where it's like, I'm not sure if your wife has ever like dealt with this, where something will happen and like for a split second, like I'll think to call him or like text him.
Yeah.
And it's like that split second where after that you're just like, like it just hits a lot harder. And it's something I've thought about as well, just like kind of the pain of like all the things that they won't be there for, physically, you know. Obviously there's the hope of like spiritually, they're in some capacity they're there.
He's turning up the lights at your shows.
Oh my God, he needs to stop that, man. He needs to stop, it's distracting.
Yeah.
I think the way I've processed it is the amount of grounding that my fiance offers. Since he's like, I give her so much like just obviously respect and just like honor like on a daily basis. But the first like 2 years after my dad passed, I am just like in admiration of her level of response to that. She has been the person that has supported me like in poetry since the beginning, like without question. I can only imagine to be the girlfriend and now fiance of like a striving artist. I imagine is a very scary thing, right? Because you're especially like
so.
like at the start when it's like, ooh, there's like 2 people in the audience right now, you know.
But that's love, and
yeah.
she sees in you what it does for you as well as the way you can communicate.
Absolutely, yeah. And so just not only with that, but you know, in the response to like losing my dad, because like, I mean, we started dating when we were 12 years old, so he was also a very big part of her life as well. And you know, I think at that time it took me a while to realize that she was also grieving, because she had no idea like how to navigate. Like it took me 2 years after he had passed to like even have a discussion with her about him or like just open up.
It was just too heavy for your heart.
Yeah, like I would at all costs just like avoid all conversations, like serious I would make jokes, but it's like having any sort of serious conversation. And I think the way that she showed up for me and continues to show up for me is what makes sort of that future or deferred pain a lot more easier to stomach. There's this beautiful saying that grief is just love with no place to go. That's a poem I'm working on right now, where it's like the way we navigate that is just simply choosing to love anyways.
Yeah.
So I think every sort of like ounce of pain that I have from grief, I just pour out through love to my fiance, just as a way to show that, like, you know, I see her and I, you know, I'm here as well. And that makes those future events, like, obviously I'm sure it's going to be hard in the moment, but having someone like her by my side makes it a lot more easier of a journey to navigate.
Very well said. All of that. I think in life, like, there's a lot of moments that we don't know how to deal with, and people deal with, like, as you called it, deferred pain, and like kind of pushing it down the road a little bit. Like, you can only deal with so much at one time. And to get to a place where then you can talk about it, it's like you need that processing time, that space. But not everybody goes through that chunk, you know, like in a healthy way. And it sounds like you were able to navigate it very well, and also for the purpose of like loving someone. And that's deeply meaningful, and something I hope, you know, the audience can, you know, learn from, because we're unfortunately, like, we don't go through life without loss, you know, one way or another. And I admire the way you handle it, man. And the way you share it too is really special. I'm gonna probably like drop a chunk of like a poem. Speaking of more chunks, I'm thinking of my little 7-month-old when I say the word chunk. He's got a lot of that. But anyway, I'm super grateful to connect with you. You know, we talk all the time like about all this stuff, and I'm glad we could do it for the audience today. And it's encouraging to me to know you. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for doing this. And everybody, thanks for listening to this very special episode with Demetri Manabat. As I always say, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we'll see you next week.